Welcome. It's Mindfulness on Monday, and here am I, Philippa and Sune again. We're having a conversation this week, and it's all about acceptance. So, hello, Sune. How are you?
Hello. I'm good, Philippa. How are you doing? I love
Yeah.
loving the necklace and the pink. It's very
Oh.
happy.
Well, the weather's sunny here anyway, and that definitely cheers you up, doesn't it? It does me anyway. I
Yeah.
managed I managed to go and get some fresh air before just before we came to this. So hopefully my brain's firing on all cylinders.
Okay, and I'm having a strong black coffee, so I'm hoping that will help to
Well,
fire me on all cylinders.
so this is something that I am aware is sometimes a challenge for me, myself personally. Um, there are things in our lives that we have little control over, and clearly at the moment, something in a lot of majority of our lives is COVID-19, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is something that came along, pulled the rug out from under us, took us all by surprise, and is having far-reaching consequences and ramifications for lots of people. And so invariably, there's a whole range of strategies that we might adopt
Mhm.
in experiencing these kinds of situations. And so resistance is futile is a saying that I'm familiar with, because we are not in charge of this. We are not the boss of this situation, and so I guess acceptance is something that a lot of us are having to come to terms with.
Mm. Yeah, and it's funny because it was a while ago, actually. I think around September when I listened to it was Dr. Chatterjee and Deepak Chopra, which is quite interesting because I don't think he's ever had someone like Deepak Chopra on his show, which is
Mm,
amazing. Uh,
mm.
anyway, I'm digressing, but he actually also had a chat today that I listened to in the car with Kristen Neff around
Oh,
self-compassion, which was
oh,
amazing.
okay.
Um, yeah, and Deepak Chopra equated the pandemic to a grieving process.
Mm,
And the stages of grieving, and this idea of if you stay in the resentment phase, then you're just not doing yourself any favors, and that's when you
mm,
stay angry and upset and the world is
mm,
against you, and
mm,
it's like a deep dark pit that you can't get out. But until you get to the point of acceptance,
mm.
things are a little bit like bashing up against each other, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely in the beginning when I had a real thing about wearing the mask. Going out places, in shops, being a glasses wearer. Those are people who are glasses wearers will know that. Yeah, wearing a mask with glasses in the winter when it's freezing cold. Oh my gosh, it's a challenge. However, I went out yesterday for some essentials, and I was talking to my mum on the phone, and I said that I'd been to the shops, and she said, "Oh, it's awful going to the shop in the mask." And you know what? I didn't even think about it. It
Mm.
was just, I was
Mm.
quite happy that I was in the shop, to be
Mm.
honest. I haven't been shopping for ages. And
Yeah,
so it's so
yeah.
so in a relatively short space of time, I moved from, oh, I can't stand that, I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it, I'd rather avoid shopping, blah blah, to a place where I hardly noticed that I had
Yeah.
the thing on my face.
Yeah, I was exactly the same. Like, the rules, the rebelliousness, everything else. But, my mom works in the NHS and she
Mm.
sometimes does 12-hour shifts. She does the
Yeah.
vaccines at the moment.
Oh,
It's 12 hours. She's in her late 60s. She wears a mask for 12 hours. And, what are you going to do? Like, you know,
mm,
throw your mask on the floor and say you're not going to do it. But yeah, I think, a lot of people like it's a big word, right? Acceptance. Um,
mm,
and I remember, like, when we talk about this, menopause thing and perimenopause and changing body, which is
Mm,
something I work with a lot. And, to say to someone, you have to accept that this is your new body. This may be it, and this may be just increasing in size over the next 20 years. I don't know. And the resistance to that is massive. But that doesn't mean that you give up looking after that body. It's a
mm,
bit like my hair, right? I had to get to a point where I went, this is my hair. It's curly on
mm,
rainy days and it's going gray. Now I can fight against that and continue coloring it and continue straightening it when it's curly and, bash against this head of hair that I was given. Or I could just go, this is my hair, but how can I look after my hair just the way it is so that I still feel good about it? Maybe not today, but, generally, you maybe put on a hair mask or go for a haircut when you can, or, take a little bit of extra care, regardless of what kind of hair you've been given. That's how I kind of see it, is that you're not giving up, but it's just because the alternative is, like I said, getting it colored every 6 weeks, getting frustrated by the roots coming out every 4 weeks. And,
mm.
and what do you want? Do you want to just accept it the way it is and work with it, or constantly bash your head against it? Or then you just have to accept that you have to have it colored every 4 weeks, but
Yeah.
I think it's that choice that we have in the matter.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's absolutely our choice, and you've chosen to not colour your hair. And I love your hair actually. I think it suits you so well. But equally, if you chose that you wanted to colour it, then that would be fine too. It's just that you'd have to go through the rigmarole every
Yeah,
4 weeks or whatever it is.
yeah, yeah,
I think, there are situations that really bad situations that we really, it isn't about accepting something that is bad for us inherently. At the moment, I've got a situation with my son who is supposed to be doing his A levels, well, doing them very shortly, whatever, that looks like. But he's kind of disenchanted and decided this is not the path he wants to take, and etc. etc. And I am having quite a lot of trouble with this situation.
yeah,
And of course, it's not inherently bad. Nobody's going to get hurt. It's just that for me, it feels quite significant, shall we say, that he's spent 2 years working towards something that potentially is going to be a very small disaster.
oh gosh.
And of course, when you look back on this, when I look back on this in 10 years' time, it'll pale into insignificance. But right now, I'm living through a situation where I feel like I'm having difficulty accepting that this is his. It's in his hands. It's certainly not in mine.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you do that?
Well, I'm still working on it. Sune is what. Oh, how very badly at the moment. So yeah, if we've got any insight, that would go down very well.
I think, I really think this is where self-compassion comes in as well. That this is a difficult situation and it is bringing up so many challenges, and no one likes challenging situations or when we feel unsettled or it's we don't like it. So I think, yeah, I mean, I'm not telling you what to do, but at all, but I think this is really where self-compassion comes in for me as well. It's like, this is a crappy situation and it sucks and I don't know what to do. but giving yourself that kind of like, you know what, this is hard, but what can I do to take care of me? And what can I do to make sure that I'm doing and giving my best so that, I don't know, can role model that sense of self-compassion in something that is quite difficult. Yeah, and it's hard when you love someone, right? And you can see that stuff they're doing may not be in line with what you would do, or maybe a clash in values, and then you think, I would not do it like that. And
yeah. I mean, I do find myself thinking things that, I just, the thoughts that we have generating the emotions, my thoughts around worry, for one. What will this mean for his future career, future stability? The whole COVID thing's thrown that all in the air as well, hasn't it, for this young generation of young people? So then you start to stick your head down that rabbit hole of worry, and so increasing levels of anxiety around that. Surely, that's not helping me to deal with the situation, is it? For sure.
Yeah, and what part of it do you accept? Do you, is it that you just accept that this is what he wants to do and you don't get involved? Or, does one go, this is where he is at right now. How best can I support him? I don't know. Yeah. I guess those are the kind of questions we have to ask ourselves, is what of this am I able to accept because I can't change it? And what am I not going to accept because I can change it? And what are the things I can do? There's so much. It's so interesting what you're saying, because it is true. Like is what, but like just in that little bit I was speaking, I was like, there's so much going on in that moment, and that's what I think brings it back to mindfulness, right? Unless you press pause, take a deep breath, and just kind of ground yourself and just go, this is what's going on right now. There's all of this. There's the feelings, there's the emotions, there's COVID, there's so much going on. How do I find a bit of stability in this? How do I find just a bit of groundedness and clarity and self-compassion and all of that in like split seconds sometimes?
Yeah, and know that you're not going to get it right every time, are you? So, and forgive yourself when things go slightly awry. I think that's it, though. This, just taking that time to, a scenario, whatever it is, it's going to be that different people have different scenarios, but to go over it in a moment when you're not emotional about it, or that's the worst time to try and solve a problem, when you are het up, or anxious, or whatever. So find a moment when then a moment of peace.
Yeah, and again, I think that's why it's so important to make this a daily practice, right? Because it's a bit like, and I've never jumped out of a plane, but let's use the fire analogy, right? Because there's the parachute metaphor. But it's like practicing for a fire drill. You don't practice for a fire drill when there's a fire. It's all of these other things that build up to it, so that when the big day comes, you know exactly what to do without even thinking about it. And that's what's so powerful for me about practicing mindfulness, is that it later on becomes more subconscious and automatic, like the automatic reaction, with practice and time and many setbacks along the way. But maybe that day that you really need it, you're able to remember a little bit that you can just stop and pause before you react as well.
Yeah, so that's the thing, isn't it? That your reaction in the moment is not what all that you would hope it would be, and that's something that you can prepare for, is what we're saying. So the daily practice of stilling the mind and just examining your thoughts, sensations in the body, any thoughts around situations, and just inspect and investigate, and then it's solving a problem. It may not be that there's an absolute solution, but that you can know at least how you want that conversation to go. Practicing the conversations, difficult conversations. This is something that I've making a presentation is definitely better if you've practiced it in advance. So practicing these conversations, especially difficult ones, at a time when we're not highly emotive, then the outcome is likely to be better when we find.
Exactly. And then, if it's like, exactly, like a presentation or whatever, then regardless of what the hiccups are during the presentation, you've practiced and you've rehearsed, so there may be a little blip, but you're able to bounce back quite quickly and carry on as normal. The other thing that comes to mind just is this idea of love and acceptance, and loving ourselves and accepting ourselves. And it's a very difficult thing for many people to kind of even say to themselves, or even just the concept of loving myself, or accepting myself, flaws and all, and in insecurities and imperfections as it is. But I think that's also a practice of repeating the words to yourself of I love and accept myself. I love and accept myself just the way I am. And it may feel a bit weird to start off with, and a bit, because we're not used to giving that kind of compassion to ourselves. But just saying those words can be very powerful. And I listened to something this weekend that a friend of mine had recorded, and she says she does that with her little girls before bed. They do a little prayer, and then she'll say, I love you just the way you are, and I accept myself just the way I am. And I thought that that's such a beautiful thing, because not only is she modeling that, but the girls are hearing it. Like, she's not saying frivolously, oh, I love myself because I'm a narcissist. It's like, I accept you just the way you are, and I accept myself the way I am. And that doesn't change my love for you when you do something which I may not agree with, but I will always be in this, like, that's a value that I value.
Yeah, I know, it sounds lovely, doesn't it? And I know I've always tried to separate the behavior, i.e., whatever the teenager is doing, from the person. I love you. I absolutely love my children, absolutely, but I don't always love what they do, and that is the difference.
Yeah. Vice versa, right?
Yeah. So it is interesting to consider that idea of self validation, but I think it isn't out of place for us to give some time to that. And I know that when we feel better about ourselves, we'll make better decisions, we'll make better choices, and we'll be happier, and then we'll be better to be around for our teenagers. And this, menopause, as you mentioned, it's a time of with the decreasing estrogen levels, the effects on the brain are very physiological effects on the brain are very real. It's not that you just can't remember things. It is that the neurons in the brain are not working as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it is that. And
Yeah.
so, at this time, it's, this anxiety that's around, the forgetfulness, and also emotionally labile, so that you're more inclined to the ups and downs. And if your teenager catches you when you're on one of the ups, this is a recipe for.
But that's what they say, right? Is that it is so hard because it's just, them going out of focus.
Yes.
When as women, when you're in your menopause, kids are teenagers. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. There you go.
That's it. You're in.
Focus. Yeah, I think I've said this before, but I had my daughter much later, so she's only still really young. And I don't know, there's pros and cons to everything. I think one thing, well, she'll be 13 when I'm 50, so who knows? Or she'll be 12. So anyway, I mean, I think, again, if we're aware of these things, we can, if you know what's happening, you can approach it very differently.
Yeah.
Or make a decision on how you're going to approach it and the actions that you're going to take and how you're going to do it as well.
And I think, when I lived in America, the Americans that I encountered are very good at this, actually verbalizing to the children, emotions, putting words to feelings that we in the UK, we're much more likely to try and brush it under the carpet,
And actually, that's so interesting because this podcast I was listening to with Dr. Kristen Neff and Dr. Chatterjee, what she was saying is that, if you're looking at self-compassion, the UK is like right at the bottom of the list when it comes to self-compassion. It's like number 14 or something. Places like Thailand is really, really high up because they've got a more of a Buddhist society. Even America is higher than the UK, but that's apparently a statistic that's out there. And I think that attitude of just suck it up and stiff upper lip, or just get on with it. And it was it's interesting. You should really listen to it. It's very, very good.
Well, I mean, Dr. Chatterjee is one of my favorites. So I was listening to him actually over my lunch, but it was his latest book. Anyway, it's not about Dr. Chatterjee.
No.
But he is a great source of very good information. And just that whole idea of having the language to describe emotions, that we have a limited repertoire, and it takes a bit of practice as well. Like all these things, this is what we're saying, that practice makes for improvement. And that these are skills that will improve our confidence, they'll improve our general frame of mind, and make life feel a lot less like you're wading through treacle. So add this into a few minutes, and it doesn't take a long time. It just takes a little bit of time on a regular basis to and tag it on to something else that you're doing anyway. If you've got a few minutes with the kettle, waiting for the kettle to boil, if you've just fed the cat and you like I feed my cats, that's something I do every day. It's not optional. So, or you've just brushed your teeth, something that you do on a regular basis, and just tag it onto that, and spend a bit of time just going inside, being a bit curious, like you say, and everything is or can be temporary. I like the idea that nothing's set in stone. We are the masters of our destiny, if we give ourselves the option. So
and I think with that temporary thing, it's a bit like urge surfing. If you have cravings, or you're trying to, I don't work with massive addictions, but with food cravings, for instance, it's just sitting with it and like surfing a wave. I've done very small waves, but just seeing the intensity of it and the rise and being with that overwhelming feeling of I need to act on this and how that feels. And it goes away again if you just allow it some space, you just allow it some time, and you just kind of breathe with it almost, like rather than trying to make it go away or do something to fix it. Is the more kind of space you give it, it's a bit like a plant, right? Like plants need to grow and expand, and if you're going to put it in a small case, eventually it will start sticking his roots out. I don't know why I just said that, but yeah, that's just this idea of expansion and space, I think, and allowing. Yeah, that's I think what I want to say is allowing and space, and when you allow all of that, it becomes easier to practice a bit more acceptance as well.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why it just came into my mind that just before I came on to this, I got an email from my son's car insurance, the very same son, letting us know that his, well, what's it called? The thing that monitors his driving, because he's a new driver.
Oh, okay.
They
Yeah,
have
I didn't know that.
a black box. It's called a black box.
Okay.
Anyway, he got a warning for driving too fast around a roundabout and then accelerating too quickly afterwards. Essentially, driving at the boundaries. And so, but this is something that I could choose to get myself involved in, or I could let him learn his own lesson at this juncture. I did have to warn him that if the insurance goes up, then that is on him. But, I can leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad I didn't have that when I was learning to drive in South Africa, when there's just no rules and oh my gosh.
No rules? What, none at all?
No, there are, but South Africa and following traffic rules is something very, very different to what most people are used to. And anyway, I don't want to go there, but that was bad.
No.
So I'm glad I didn't have a black box in my car.
Well, no, and neither did I. I didn't have a black box either. But
no, I guess it's a new thing, isn't it?
Well, and so there weren't all the speed cameras that there are now, but road deaths are, is something that we have to be cognizant of. And young males are higher up there in the statistics. And then, of course, it gets all a bit emotive because I lost my brother in a motorcycle accident, didn't I? So, roads have a kind of connotations for me with young two sons who drive. It's sometimes, you get the feeling just at the thought of that. It does emotion. So I have to really rein myself in with that because I'm quite glad the black box is doing the job for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, that is really I can imagine that's really, really hard.
Yeah. So, but this is life, isn't it? The teenagers, they've got to experience life for themselves. You can't wrap them in cotton wool. And you do when they're little, obviously. But there comes a time they've got to fly the coop, and and that again, that's something I have to accept, that I have, having control when they're little, micromanaging the world. You do that, and then they go to school, and then they're under the influence of the teachers and the and then it kind of just spirals when they get to be teenagers, and you just so this is a time for me when I don't want to get this wrong. I do want to manage this situation in a way that means that, when he is no longer a 17-year-old trying to pull away, that we still have that bond that we've had up until this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to accept. There's no other way. This is something that the path I have to take. But even though I know that, it still doesn't make it easy.
No, and I think that's a very important point, is that it doesn't have, it's not about fixing it, or it's not about all of a sudden it'll be easier, or that it's some miracle way of being and doing, and you live 10 feet above the rest of humanity. I don't think it's that at all. It's just that it doesn't take away from the fact that it's painful, it's hard, it's uncomfortable, it sucks, it doesn't make any of that light of any of that. But yeah, part of being human is suffering and is challenges and difficulties. I mean, obviously there's also the beauty and the mundane, but we get so overwhelmed by all the harshness, and it's just I guess developing this different relationship with our challenges, our struggles, our difficulties, that it doesn't have such a hold on us that we feel like this is the end of my being. Having a different relationship with it, I think, is important.
Yeah, I think that's it. So, well, you know what? We did it again. Thank you so much.
Or kids banging on the door today.
No, it was all good. So do have a lovely rest of your day. And the same to everyone who watches this. Do interact, send us comments, questions, and let us know if there's something you want us to talk about. Check it out on the playback. Thank you again so much, Sune. Have a fabulous rest of your day.
I will. Thank you, Philippa. It's
Take
lovely.
care.
Bye.
Bye.